The date was April 6, 2021. The time was 5:30 in the morning. I watched my dad lie flat on his back while I was trying to feel the same warmth in his hands or even some sensation of a response. But he was cold and numb. Moments earlier, I was sitting next to him, watching him gasping for air. Once a strong and stoic man, who had always been a pillar of strength for our family, was now a shadow of his former self. Each time he gasped, the monitor would beep. Otherwise, it was evident the line on the monitor was flattening, just as his breathing. And then it happened. The line flattened, and the inevitability of the end, death, had taken him away from us. To everything there is a season, a time to be born and a time to die. For some it's grandma or grandpa, for others it's mom or dad. For some it's a brother, a sister, a friend or a lover. Whoever it is, whenever it is, and wherever it is. One thing is for sure, at some point, we all have to experience the sting of death. We often talk so much about the beginning of life. We're anxious to find out what the birth gender of the baby is. And then we throw a party to shower them with gifts once they're born. And then we throw another party once they spend their first 12 months on this earth. And every 12 months after that. We share stories about the day we were born, albeit stories we cannot remember ourselves, and have only formed from the pieces we've been told by different sources. We talk a lot about birth, but usually never about death. Most times the first we're forced to talk about it, it has already taken someone we love. But it doesn't have to be this way. We are all going to die someday, so we might at least talk about it while we still can. So here is it to death. As everyone knows, death is the end of, well, everything for you. It's when all the body's vital functions stop permanently. Your heart stops beating, your breath ceases, you lose all brain activity. His heart is failing and the body is now experiencing circulation changes. His heartbeat is becoming fainter and his skin no longer radiates like the summer sun. The pale grey blue of the winter starts to take over, most visibly on the knees, hands and legs. His breathing becomes erratic. Sometimes it's slow, sometimes it's fast. Sometimes it's faint, and sometimes it's loud. He takes several breaths and then a long pause with no breathing at all. And just when I thought he's gone, he'd gasp and take yet another breath. He's not there yet, but he's close. In a few hours, he'll take another long pause. But then, there'll be no gasp to break the silence. When most people are about to leave us to the other side of life, they claim to feel a sense of readiness, like they're wrapped around Mother Nature's arms, similar to a feeling of a baby in their mother's womb. There's a sense of comfort, a sense of completion, and a sense of peace. People are often well aware of what's coming next and can even hold on for something significant to happen before giving up the ghost. You might not want to wait to tell your parents how much you appreciate everything they did for you as a child, or perhaps place a call to a friend to tell them you forgave them for all the wrong they did. Or maybe you're waiting to hold your kids in your arms again, or kiss your partner on the cheek one last time. When death comes knocking, we often already know who's at the door. We prepare ourselves and ready our houses before walking out the door, locking it and throwing out the key. As we walk out the door, we gradually become confused. We slip into an unconscious state one last time. We draw the curtains to what was our life. We die. Everything that happens up until this point, we know and understand. But everything that happens afterwards is a complete mystery to us. The craziest thing about death is that we often describe it as irreversible. What is dead will stay dead. But there are thousands of people out there who have been medically described as dead, but have come back carrying with them tons of incredible stories. We call these near death experiences, but because again, we believe if it was actual death, they wouldn't be alive to tell the story. But is that true? We just might never know. There's wealth of information out there with regard to near death experiences. People who have been medically described as dead for hours and in some cases for days come back to life with stories of out of body experiences, memories of their time in the life hereafter, down to some incredible specifics about this side of life that they couldn't have made up. One thing many people who have had near death experiences agree upon is the fact that the phrase life flashes before your eyes is very true. Just before the heart flatlines, we're often presented a view of our entire life. However, it's not like the way we think it is. It's not the big moments in life that flash before our eyes. It's not the wedding or the graduation or the first time you heard the cry of your child. It's just random stuff. It's riding your bike as a kid, sitting at your work desk, random people you may have had an acquaintance with. They are the things we don't give any thought to, the moments we usually don't remember in life, that are brought before us in the face of death. Then this begs the question, are all our memories still in our mind, even the ones we've forgotten? When we die, do we get to see everything that we thought we had forgotten during our time on this side of life? Is what is gone only gone temporarily? One of the reasons death is so scary to a lot of people is that it seems very lonely. You came into this world alone, but do you leave alone? Many people who have had near-death experiences explain that they saw a dead relative there to either escort them to the afterlife or tell them it wasn't their time yet. But whichever one it was, death is definitely not as lonely as we might think. Whether this was simply a figment of their imagination trying to reassure them and make them comfortable in the last few moments, or it was just really the spirit or soul of their dead relatives, this is something that we'll never be able to say for sure. However, what we do know is death for most people is not lonely, or at least does not feel that way. Speaking of the soul, this is one concept that science has not yet been able to figure out, or at least have some kind of an explanation for. But with the number of near-death experiences associated with an out-of-body experience, it might be time to start rethinking whether it's something that can be explained by science. So one starts to wonder, do we really not have a soul? Or whatever that may be, are we literally just made of random molecules and atoms responding to stimuli that Mother Nature throws at us? Or perhaps we are something more. However, for most, what is dead remains dead. And so after 1 or 2 days, it's time to say our final goodbyes. Much of what we know about human history is down to how we have buried our dead. From tombs to mummies, dead people have given us more information than the living left behind. The oldest known burial site dates to around 10,000 years ago in Kafsa, Israel. The remains of the dead were put carefully in a coffin together with items such as garments, trinkets, and food. This means that even as far back as 10,000 years ago, humanity understood the significance of death and the need to celebrate a life well spent. To date, many different cultures do funerals differently. Most people sit together to reminisce about the life once lived, talking about all the good the person did while they were alive. Many religious organizations pray over the remains to give them a favorable outcome in the afterlife. But what that afterlife is different to different people. Abrahamic religions believe that your actions on the earth determine where you spend the eternity afterwards. Families are encouraged to be strong in face of death, as we would eventually be reconnected once when we cross to the other side. For some other religions like the Hindus, what is dead shall be reborn. After the ceremonies and prayers, the bodies are buried or cremated, and the living that are gathered disperse in a bid to heal from the hurt of losing someone. Even when we expect it, death is extremely painful, because the idea of losing someone isn't the same as actually losing them and mourning the relationship that once was. And although we are fully aware that these things can happen and that they are a part of human experience, when we are faced with the harsh reality, the feeling of grief can be excruciating. The finality of death is its scariest attribute. The waking up one morning and realizing that everything we once had, shared, experienced, they're all gone forever. The fact that all we'll have left of those experiences are memories. Old memories we cannot recreate, and new memories we cannot form. But more often than not, these experiences give us a new perspective on life. It reaffirms the reality of the brevity of life and gives us the courage to experience all that we can in the short time we have on this earth. It teaches us to be good people while we're alive, because we won't be there to defend ourselves when we'll be talked about. And in the end, we are better equipped to help people going through the same thing, because people are better comforted by others who have had a similar experience. Seeing someone just like you survive through their own loss gives you a sense of hope that maybe, just maybe, you too will be able to pull through. When you're sitting there staring at your loved one who's about to die, understand death is normally not as painful and troubling for the person dying as it is for you. For the next 2 hours, sit with them, squeeze their hands in yours, talk about all the beautiful things in life, about shared experiences, about their kids, their loved ones and friends. Talk about a life well spent. Talk about death. The earth will keep spinning, the birds keep chirping, but eventually everything has an end.